Hi, everyone. We're going to be starting in a few minutes, so if you could please take your seats. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. We're going to be starting the program in about 1 to 2 minutes. So if everybody could please come and have a seat. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, everyone. Going to be starting in about 30 seconds. If you'd like to come and have a seat, make a friend, get comfortable. The rain is good timing. That's also good. We have some seats in the front. If anybody wants to come and have a seat, there's some seats. Great. Wonderful. Great. Just going to chat this real quick. Okay. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. So I think that we would like to first make an announcement to all of the people who are joining us online today. So actually, if you're joining on the Zoom, you can change your closed caption settings to be able to listen in the language of your choice. So for all of you joining online, please feel free to adjust your Zoom settings to the language of your choice. And for those of you who are joining offline today, whose main language is Japanese, we also have this really fantastic tool. It's just basically, it's called Voice Ping, and it is somehow translating my English into Japanese live. My apologies in advance if there's some strange language happening here, but you know, AI is always doing its best to improve, so we appreciate your understanding for this. Great. So, hello everyone. It's very nice to see you all here today. Thank you very much for joining us for the 4th Annual Circular Awards Summit. Yay. Thank you very much. So, I'd like to start by posing a question. What if we could design a future we choose rather than simply accept the one we inherit? Many people today are familiar with the linear economy, the dominant system where we live, where resources are extracted, turned into products and services, and ultimately discarded as waste. This linear economy wasn't deliberately chosen. It became the norm because it was the most accessible, convenient, and scalable system available. But now we have the opportunity to rethink and redesign that system, making circularity just as intuitive and available to everyone as the linear economy. So I would like to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Kelsey Stewart. As the Sustainability Executive at LawFork and the Chief Community Officer at FabCafe, I have the privilege of leading sustainability initiatives at LawFork and FabCafe, while also chairing the Circular Awards, Japan's first award dedicated to harnessing the power of circular design. So I would like to continue by sharing a little bit about myself and why I am so passionate about sustainability and my work at LawFork. So my commitment to sustainability, conservation, and empowering people to make choices that benefit themselves started when I was quite young. So as a Girl Scout in the United States, I was immersed in values that shaped my worldview, including respect for nature, responsible stewardship, and others. You can see the photo on the far left. I'm the one right there in the center, the little blonde girl. Yes. By the time I left the organization at 13, these values had become second nature to me. For example, my mother, who was a Girl Scout troop leader, always instilled these principles such as take only photos, leave only footprints, and always leave a place more beautiful than you found it. Then, working as a barista at one of Florida's first third-wave coffee shops called Volta Coffee, Tea, and Chocolate, I came to understand the importance of supply chains through the seed-to-cup philosophy. This experience taught me that a simple cup of coffee represents an intricate network of farmers, roasters, and consumers, each playing a vital role in the process. Leading coffee cuppings, training new baristas, touring coffee farms, and even competing in a regional US Barista Championship, I saw firsthand how supply chains are not just about logistics, they embody deep economic and social values. So that's me in the middle, doing my best to make a cappuccino. Yes, with honey. 7 years ago, I joined LawFork and FabCafe, a global creative community and digital fabrication hub. Within 1 year of joining the company, I took on the role of organizing the Global Goals Jam, where I led design thinking workshops focused on tackling the Sustainable Development Goals. Hosting these workshops in Tokyo, Bangkok, and Hong Kong, along FabCafe's global team, I witnessed the profound impact that design can have in shaping a better world. This experience reinforced my belief that sustainability isn't just about awareness. It's about action, it's about collaboration, and the power of design to drive meaningful change. So in LawFork and FabCafe, I have been continuously inspired by the work of my colleagues who have spearheaded projects in circularity, systems management, sustainable forestry, and more. And in particular, for this year's Circular Awards, I was inspired by Nami Urano, the leader of our community Species, a community which explores biological design and the unpredictability of nature. I was also inspired by FabCafe Bangkok's co-founder Kalaya Vidvidseth, who's working on projects such as the Sustaining Our Ocean SOO, which is funded by the Fast Retailing and supported by UNESCO's Education Unit. They'll be working this year with Ranong's local schools to promote ocean conservation by inspiring young people's admiration for their hometown. This project will actually launch with an exhibition in Ranong in Thailand on June 8th for World Ocean Day, and will also be showcased at the Expo in Osaka in 2025 this year. So Kalaya has also kindly determined this year's Circular Awards prize theme, which is towards a circular bioeconomy. Which leads me to the theme of today's event, which is living loops, or in Japanese, ikiteru wa, which asks the question, how can humans empower nature's living loops to create truly regenerative systems? So today I am joined by a fantastic panel of judges and winners of the Circular Awards from around the world. We have David Benjamin, the founding principal of the Living and Associate Professor at Columbia University, who's joining us live online today. We have Annie Korkman, the program director of Helsinki Design Week, who's joined us from Helsinki. We have Kalaya Kovitvises, of course, the FabCafe Bangkok co-founder, who's joining us from Bangkok. We have Takaki Kasuga, who's the assistant professor at the Institute of Scientific and Industrial Research in Osaka University. We have Arthur Yamino, who is an eco-deviant artist joining us from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And we have Laura Benetton, a multidisciplinary contemporary artist who is joining us from London. So we have a very wonderfully diverse panel of speakers with us here today. A little bit about the organizers. So Circular Awards is organized by Loftwork, the creative company, and FabCafe, the creative community hub. We are also very, very grateful to our media sponsors, Ideas for Good and Circular Economy Hub. Just a little bit about Loftwork for those of you who are hearing about us for the first time. We are a creative company that's been running out of Japan now for 25 years. We also have Loftwork offices in Kyoto and Taiwan. In Loftwork, what I think is very interesting is the ecosystem of different business units that work together to create the new potential for the future. So for example, of course, we have FabCafe, but we also have the material unit, which is discovering the new potential of physical materials, also exploring communication possibilities through haptic design. We have Bio Club, which is meeting every Tuesday here at FabCafe Tokyo. Layout, which is not only creating physical layout inside the space, but activating that space through their fantastic programming and community building, and many others. About FabCafe, so for those of you who are joining offline today, welcome to FabCafe Tokyo. I'm very happy to see you here. So what is FabCafe exactly? So our mission is for everyone to be able to answer for themselves the question that we continually ask ourselves, which is, what do you fab? What do you fab is not just what do you make, but how do you see the future? And what kind of things do you want to make for the future? We believe that everybody, whether you're an expert or an upcoming player or a student, should have the capacity to come in and create the things that they want to see in the future. Of course, every FabCafe shares some things. We have the cafe, which is the open space for us to do community building and different kinds of workshops, digital fabrication, DIY, these kinds of things. And we have the digital fabrication machines themselves. So we have 3D printers, we have laser cutters, UV printers, and things like this. And of course, maybe 15 or 20 years ago when 3D printers first came out, they thought, oh, 3D printers are going to change the world, or laser cutters, we can make anything now. But what did we come to find out? Well, it's the same thing with every technology. If you don't have someone with an idea who is empowered to use these machines to create the future, it's still just a machine. It's just still the technology by itself. So here at FabCafe, we're using the cafe itself as a community building space. We're bringing in the technology, and through this combination, we're creating new innovation for the future. Yes. So in Japan, we have several FabCafes, and outside of Japan, we also have several cafes, in total 12. In Japan, we have FabCafe in Tokyo, Nagoya, Fujiyoshida, Hida, and Kyoto. Outside of Japan, we have FabCafe in Strasbourg, Toulouse, Barcelona, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and Mexico City. And I'm very happy to say that actually there is a group joining us today for a live viewing in FabCafe Taipei. So welcome, FabCafe Taipei. Yes. Yes, great. Nice. So, I would also like to announce that we're going to be opening a new FabCafe in Osaka from April 18th. We're very excited about this. The theme is going to be about distillation. So please keep them in mind, and please go visit them if you have a chance to visit Osaka. Yeah, it is very exciting. Great. Nice. So about the Circular Awards. So what is the Circular Awards? The Circular Awards empowers the creators of the future while gathering projects and ideas that we can leverage for circular design. Of course, we do awards, but we also run exhibitions. We have various related projects, and we're doing events regularly in not just FabCafe Tokyo, but around the world. Our values include circularity, circular, not linear. So we try not to stop at the award itself, but to continue the collaboration beyond. Action, not prestige, and gaining from global perspectives. The Circular Awards perspectives. So Circular Awards is a genreless award, which means that you don't need to have a product, you don't need to have a specific service to apply. We also warmly welcome projects in art or city development related projects, education programs, and others as well. And we are joined also by a fantastic panel of judges. I won't go through everyone today, but I think you'll have a chance at least to become familiar with Annie Korkman joining from Helsinki and Kaija Kavitsis from Bangkok. But yes, these are some of our lovely judges. And the 2024 results this year, so we had 143 projects that applied to Circular Awards from 47 different countries, and we had 29 winners from these applications. And we saw a fantastic diversity in projects coming from all different kinds of contexts, countries, and situations. Yes. So the project talk today is going to be honing in on this year's special prize, which is towards a circular bioeconomy. For this one, we had 3 key criteria. First, empowering nature to create a new loop. Second, regenerating ecosystems. And third, education and storytelling. And just to briefly review the program for today, so following this introduction, we're going to be having a keynote speech from David Benjamin, who's joining us online. Following this keynote speech, we will have a winner's presentation by Takaki Kasuga, and then we will have a crosstalk between myself, Kaija Kavitsis, and David Benjamin. For this crosstalk, we will focus on the topic of how can we scale up a circular bioeconomy. Following this, we'll have a short break and jump into the winner presentations by Arthur Guilleminot and Laura Benetton. Following this, we will have a crosstalk with Annie Korkman, Arthur Guilleminot, and Laura Benetton on the topic of how can we leverage the power of creativity to shift to a nature-centered mindset. I think that you can see between the first crosstalk and the second crosstalk, we're kind of talking about 2 sides of the same coin. How do we think about circularity from a measurable perspective? How do we think about circularity from an arguably immeasurable perspective? Following this, we will have an after party here at FabCafe Tokyo. Great. So without further ado, I would like to warmly welcome David Benjamin, the founding principal of the Living and associate professor at Columbia University. David was kind enough to join us the very first year of Circular Awards and has joined us again this year. So if everyone can please give a warm round of applause for David as he comes to do his keynote speech.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelsey. It's really great to be here. Let me see if I can share my screen here. And I will launch my presentation. Okay, so I assume that you can hear me and see me, but if not, then please let me know. So I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I would like to share a little bit of my thinking about this important event, the Circular Awards and the Summit, and also about this theme that Kelsey just described of living loops. In other words, the topic of a circular bioeconomy, which are very exciting to me as themes, in part because I think of buildings as living organisms. I think of buildings as dynamic systems rather than static objects. I think that buildings should be designed to change over time based on changing conditions. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the incredible team that I work with, the people shown here. All of our work is collaborative, and these people individually and collectively bring it to life. And now I'd like to tell a brief story in two parts. The first part is about curiosity and a vision for living architecture. This is the Embodied Computation Lab at Princeton University. It's an example of an individual project that is exploratory and in some ways futuristic and utopian, a project that is kind of creating its own world and asking some of its own questions. And more specifically, this is a building for the next generation of architecture research for experiments with things like robotics and sensors and everywhere that computers meet the physical world and become embodied computation. The building is located near the athletic fields on campus and the new chemistry building. And historically, this has been a great site of architectural experimentation. It's where Buckminster Fuller made his first geosphere with students. And the program for our new building was basically to involve multiple uses, from teaching to fabricating to testing. In a way, kind of an educational version of FabCafe. But more importantly, the program really called for the flexibility to adapt over time to new research and new equipment. In other words, we had to design for both the known research and equipment of today, and also for the unknown research and equipment of, say, 10 or 20 or even 50 years from now. And our concept was to create what we thought of as an open source building. So like open source software, the building was designed to be kind of released into the world as a fully functional version 1, but it was also designed very much to be changed over time by multiple authors. And I won't describe all the ways this worked, but for the sake of our discussion today about a circular bioeconomy, I want to mention that in order to reduce the carbon footprint of the project, we decided to make the facade for this building out of repurposed scaffolding boards from New York City construction that would otherwise end up in a landfill. Here's a picture of some of these scaffolding boards in use. And we wanted to reuse the material in a way as a kind of living loop. So we developed this hypothesis that weathered wood from these scaffolding boards with these kind of micro contours might offer thermal performance benefits through trapping small pockets of air, and also hydro performance benefits through shedding water. So we knew that the material might offer these specific performance benefits, but we also knew that zones of the facade had different performance requirements, as this solar analysis over the course of the year shows. And we knew that we had thousands of boards with different properties to arrange. So which board with which properties should we put in each position? Areas of the wood with the narrowest grain provided the best performance, and regions around the knots in wood tended to have the narrow grain we wanted. So we set out to identify and treat the knots in each board. First, we photographed all the boards, and then we used a little human training, asking people to look at photos and click knot with a KN or knot with an N. After some initial training, the algorithm got pretty good at kind of seeing where the knots were, even in new photos that had never been seen or classified by a human. Here's the algorithm at work, honing in on the knots from left to right. It was fascinating here that the human had simply stated whether each photo had a knot, but didn't circle it or describe it. And then the computer was able to look at a new photo and not only figure out whether the photo had a knot, but also find the location of the knot. So after using machine learning to identify the knots in these boards, we created a custom robotic sandblasting machine to treat the knots and produce the micro contours that we wanted. And overall, this allowed us to explore a kind of new approach to materials, especially biomaterials. Practically, it allowed us to reuse materials and to reduce the carbon footprint of the building. And conceptually, it allowed us to celebrate variation rather than trying to erase it, and to overturn the lowest common denominator approach to materials that we typically have in the built environment. Then the facade itself became an example of embodied computation. And in the end, the building suggests a new hybrid design approach that combines a kind of human intelligence and machine intelligence. So the second part of my story is about impact and levers of decarbonization. So while the first part was a little more dreamy, maybe, the second part is more practical. While the first part was about curiosity and individual projects, the second part is about impact and multiple projects and scaling up. And this transformation in my thinking and my approach is related to news from a few months ago when the world's leading climate scientists declared that, quote, "We are on the brink of an irreversible climate disaster," end quote. So we may have heard some words like this before and seen some graphs like this before, but I think that as a society and as the disciplines of design and architecture, we haven't really registered that first, we've now arrived at a crossroads. And second, if we take the wrong path, the effects will be irreversible. And just to go a level deeper, each graph here that I'm showing on the screen from the scientist report shows how the year 2023, shown in blue, and then the year 2024, shown in red, are almost off the charts with unprecedented highs in things like ocean temperature and air temperature, and unprecedented lows in sea ice extent. No other year is even close. And this indicates that we may have already hit some of these climate tipping points. And as we know, of course, carbon emissions are driving climate change and these tipping points. And the built environment contributes about 40% of global carbon emissions. And of course, as with all sectors of emissions, we really need to cut these emissions in half or more by 2030 and eliminate them entirely by 2050 or even earlier. And at the same time, due to population growth and urbanization, the built environment is expected to double in the next 30 years. So this is basically a visualization that we created showing expected urban growth over time. And this basically means that a New York City's worth of buildings will be constructed every month for 30 years. It means 13,000 buildings will be constructed every day for 30 years. 13,000 buildings today, 13,000 tomorrow, 13,000 the next day, and so on. So how can we dramatically decrease carbon emissions from all buildings at the same time we dramatically increase the total number of buildings? This is the massive challenge of decarbonization, and this is what's driving my shift from part one to part two, from curiosity to impact. I've come to believe that we need more than individual projects. We need more than open-ended exploration. We need to develop these kind of levers of decarbonization, where a lever is a way to multiply the impact of the force we apply. Slow or incremental action is just totally insufficient to the problem. We need a strategy to transform radically and quickly. So with this in mind, the lever of decarbonization that I want to describe right now is what we're thinking of as drop-in technologies. And by this, I mean technologies or approaches that can be kind of dropped into today's systems that are already running. These technologies don't need to wait. They're the most transformational technologies that can be used right now, right away. And if buildings are going to get to net zero, they need to dramatically reduce embodied carbon. And if buildings are going to dramatically reduce embodied carbon, they need a range of different carbon negative materials to choose from that are ready to be used today. And by carbon negative materials, I basically mean materials that involve more carbon absorbed than emitted during the process of production, the kind of supply chains that Kelsey was mentioning earlier with coffee. But of course, creating transformative drop-in technology is not always that simple and easy. And so here I'd like to briefly describe a pathway from prototype to scaling up, which actually connects a few different projects that we've done over the past several years. And it started about 10 years ago with the prototype. The idea here was that if we need to radically transform the built environment, we need prototypes for how this might work. And our initial prototype was called Hi-Fi, and it was part of a competition run by the Museum of Modern Art and MoMA PS1 in New York City. The project started with a hypothesis, a kind of circular hypothesis, that we need a new, more sustainable approach to materials. In other words, maybe we could start with waste as a raw material, make building blocks with only a small amount of carbon emissions, create a useful structure, and then return the physical matter of this structure to the natural, healthy carbon cycle, this living loop of a carbon cycle. And one way to do this might be through what we call biofabrication, harnessing a living organism, in this case mycelium, which is the branching root-like structure of mushrooms, as a tiny factory to manufacture new building blocks. Because it turns out that you can combine mycelium with agricultural byproducts like chopped up corn stalks, and in about a week, the mixture will grow into a solid object, as you see here in this time-lapse video. So these objects can be used for many purposes, and our idea was to use them as a new kind of load-bearing architectural brick. So to create a prototype with this new material, we had to do a lot of physical testing, compressing a single brick and then compressing small assemblies of bricks. Here we worked with a strength of materials lab at Columbia University and with Arup as structural engineers. And then for an installation at the Museum of Modern Art and MoMA PS1, we created a temporary building as a kind of medium scale test of this new material. It was about 40 feet tall, so more than just one story, about 13 meters tall, and it involved about 10,000 bricks, more than just a handful of bricks. So here's the prototype in the context of some of the glass and steel buildings of Manhattan in the background and the clay brick building of MoMA PS1. And at PS1, the ultimate goal for a summer project is to host a good party, because thousands of people come to the museum each Saturday to hear experimental electronic music. And here's the first Saturday of our installation. And this was actually totally fitting for us, basically conducting the experiment out in public, so to speak, in society, rather than just on a lab bench or in the fenced-off corner of a construction site. Mycelium bricks are so natural and non-toxic that I let my 8-year-old son take a bite of it. He said it tasted like oatmeal. And by the way, I also took a bite. I didn't just test it on my son. And at the end of the summer, we took apart the pavilion, and in about 60 days, all of the physical matter of this pavilion returned to soil through composting. So this is another example, in a way, of a living loop. So that was the initial prototype. It showed what might be possible. And a few years later, we had a chance to go a little further and kind of push the limits or test the limits of this new material. In other words, with our project Hi-Fi, our bricks were alive, in living bricks during their formation, but then they were dried out and they became dead and inert during the construction and occupation of the structure. But we always wondered, what if the bricks were not dried out? And what if the material did not become dead and inert? What if building materials were literally alive? This is an idea that we had wanted to experiment with since we made the PS1 project, and we found the opportunity to do this in a new project called Living Bricks for the Pompidou Center in Paris. And here we created a revised hypothesis that materials which are literally alive could create new kinds of architecture. And for a second prototype project, we explored how living bricks could grow together in a process that we call biowelding. And this basically could give us brick and mortar in the same object. And this gave us a lot of different ideas, including the possibility of combining biowelding with what's called material jamming, the effect of units or bricks sticking together through friction and geometry, especially when they're placed in specific kinds of formwork. So of course, we ran many experiments and iterated, looking for specific conditions that might create a kind of jamming that we could use for new architectural structures. And after some small-scale tests, we moved on to some quarter-scale tests, looking for a way to create an architectural arch through jamming and biowelding, two processes that involve design with uncertainty, design without complete control, and design with bottom-up process more than with top-down form. And then for an installation at the Pompidou Center, we tested this approach at full scale. The idea was that we could grow sustainable blocks with a specific size and shape, and then create a formwork with a specific size and shape, and then pour the blocks into the formwork, as I'm showing here. And then we relied on these two unusual material processes. So first, the blocks would lock together through jamming. In other words, we'd open up the bottom of the formwork, like opening up the plug at the bottom of a funnel. And because of jamming, the blocks at the bottom would be loose and they'd fall out easily, while the blocks at the top would be kind of jammed in tight and would form a kind of self-assembled arch. And second, we relied on the blocks fusing together through biowelding. So we would let the blocks sit in the formwork for 2 days, and since the material was still alive, the blocks would grow together and fuse together. Then we'd remove the formwork and the blocks would hold together as an integrated system. And we were excited and relieved to see that it more or less worked. And this basically suggested a new way to design and build architecture scale structures. So this line of research started with the prototype, then the work evolved to kind of testing the limits, as I just showed, and now the critical step we've been working on is scaling up. So when people saw our project with mycelium bricks about 10 years ago, the reaction that I received most was something like, that's interesting, but when is this going to be in a real building? And this question was both annoying, and I also knew that it was important. And I would often answer something like, well, it's challenging, but within 10 years, this material will be in a real building. I didn't think I'd be involved in making this happen, but based on what I knew about the material and my work with the material, I was relatively confident that it was possible. And now fast forward 10 years, and we are working with several industry partners to try to bring this to life, to use mycelium in a real building to scale it up. So this is a large, complex project that we're trying to deliver for an affordable housing development at about half the time, cost, and carbon emissions of a typical multifamily residential project in the San Francisco area. Here's a vacant lot in West Oakland, California, that will soon become the Phoenix, a 316-unit affordable housing complex. And this project has many components. One of the components is the use of prefabricated modules that help reduce the time cost and cost of designing and making housing. And here what I'm showing is the production facility of Factory OS, a modular offsite construction company that we're working with for the project. And another component is a software workflow that we created that can be used to explore layout options for buildings and landscape, starting with past successful designs and then generating new designs with the same characteristics of the past good examples, which can then be used by a wide range of stakeholders to make data-informed trade-offs and promote sustainability. And a third component of the project is the use of low carbon materials, and more specifically, mycelium materials that are carbon negative, which brings us back to this idea of levers of decarbonization and drop-in technologies and scaling up. So about 10 years after we created our initial prototype project, we developed another revised hypothesis. And this hypothesis is basically that prototypes alone are insufficient. This hypothesis is that in order to scale up and make an impact, we need the most radical thing that we can do right away. We can't wait for perfection and certainty. We need to get comfortable with being good enough. And in this case, it might mean combining natural low-carbon biomaterials like mycelium materials with a synthetic high-carbon material as a kind of drop-in technology that can work with today's building codes and today's construction processes. So for this housing project in California, we realized that some experiments may lend themselves easily to drop-in technologies, like the initial prototype of making a carbon negative brick for PS1, and other experiments may not be really ready for this kind of use, like the brick that's still alive that we used for the exhibit at the Pompidou Center. And what we decided was to use this technology that was ready to be dropped in to take our original carbon negative mycelium material, develop it to be denser and stronger, then coat it with a very thin layer of a traditional material for durability. And in other words, we created a kind of hybrid system with both mycelium and fiber reinforced polymer as the coating. And once again, this new hypothesis required a huge amount of testing. We did some digital testing, looking at simulation to model and improve the strength and the life cycle of the composite. And for physical testing, we conducted a huge range of experiments, including the all-important E84 fire test, which basically proved that this new facade system achieves a Class A rating and can be used in California residential buildings under 40 feet tall. And so here, what we're doing for the project is taking mycelium cores and placing them in a thin fiberglass shell in order to leverage the best of both worlds, the carbon performance of mycelium and the durability performance of fiberglass, or FRP. And then we're manufacturing these huge panels, 38-foot long panels of this facade system. The panels are for our real building in California, and they contain all 5 layers that are critical for the performance of our building facade and really any building facade: structure, waterproofing, fire resistance, thermal insulation, and sound dampening. And plus, they can be created in almost any size, shape, and finish, not just what you're seeing here. And then these prefabricated panels can be installed quickly in a factory or on site. And the large panels save construction time and cost while also providing durability and carbon negativity. And most importantly, they're ready to be used today. So to conclude, the idea here is that the decarbonization of the built environment might leverage carbon negative materials. And carbon negative materials might be created with a combination of bio-based materials and synthetic materials. And these kind of new systems should, of course, be generalizable to many, many projects. So while in some ways this kind of drop-in technology is a compromise, it may be necessary if we really want to scale up and to act now. And maybe to put it a little differently, maybe we need to simultaneously design buildings and design systems for scaling up. We need to use our architectural intelligence to design supply chains and holistic approaches to resources, as well as just designing buildings. Here's one of our new panels that's being prepared for installation on the housing module. And it really represents this new hypothesis for connecting prototype to scaling up. It's not really what I once dreamed about, and it's not the eventual goal, because eventually we need 100% biogenic, renewable materials, even for facades. But maybe this kind of system has a role to play as one of many approaches we'll need to address the climate crisis. And while this panel may not look transformational, while the mycelium material and the carbon impact may be invisible because it's hidden behind the synthetic material, while developing this new material system has required some challenging and messy and tedious work, despite all of that, I think the process of moving from prototype projects to scale up is critical, and it needs more discussion, investment, and emphasis in both school and in practice. And finally, to come full circle, I want to mention that I'm not totally giving up on more radical experiments and prototypes. So a few months ago, I was feeling a little bit of climate despair, and I was wondering if there was really a role for experimentation and prototypes in addressing the immense challenges of climate change. And I mentioned this to Vincent Martinez, one of the leaders of Architecture 2030, a really inspiring organization that's been raising awareness about sustainability in the built environment for 20 years. And in this context, Vincent told me that he likes to think about a quote by an economist named Milton Friedman. And the quote is, quote, "Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around," end quote. So, maybe I should note that I believe that Friedman's economic ideas, some of them are problematic, but this theory of change that he described actually makes a lot of sense to me. The times ahead are uncertain, conditions are going to change quickly, and in addition to making a kind of clear-headed plan for scaling up, as I've been describing, we also probably need to have many good ideas that are just lying around for the crisis. And in that spirit, I'd like to show one more thing. This is a project called Alive for the Venice Biennale of Architecture a couple of years ago. It's an experiment with a new bioreceptive material and a new pavilion that aims to explore a kind of multi-species building and a version of probiotic architecture. And so I'd like to conclude by offering a story about living buildings, which is also a story about design for our collective future. And I'm going to stop my share for a second because I'm going to show a video, and I believe I forgot to share the sound. So forgive me, give me 1 second. I'm going to reshare my screen, share sound. Oops. Oh no, for some reason I'm not able to share sound. Can you, I assume you can still hear me. Let me try one more time. Okay, I'm sharing my screen, but I was not able to hit the sound button. So let me know if the sound comes through when I play this video. Can you hear the sound?
David, I'm sorry we can't hear the sound, but we can see the video.
I see. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and play the video. I don't want to spend more time with tech support.
I'm going to read the subtitles for those in the back. What if we created architectural environments to host a diversity of microbes? Architecture could include spaces for both humans and microorganisms. Rooms could have different microclimates for different types of microbes. Materials could be sponges with infinite surface area. A material like loofah could support microbes with cavities of different sizes and shapes and different amounts of moisture and airflow. Walls become clouds to nourish humans, and a new living architecture is born from probiotic buildings. A holobiont is a collection of human microbes and other organisms. Each contribute to the well-being of the whole. We are all made of each other. And all architecture is multi-species architecture. In the future, buildings could be like our skin and gut, with colonies of microbes tuned to promote our health. Humans are the microbes of the city. For both humans and microbes, diversity is the key to well-being. And to design for diversity is to design for our collective future.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey, for reading those. And just to conclude, I would like to say here's to both deliberate levers of decarbonization and also spontaneous ideas that are lying around during a crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you very much, David, for your very inspiring keynote speech. In particular, there were some key words that came out to me. Of course, levers of decarbonization, irreversible climate disaster, and these tipping points, being comfortable with being good enough. And one word in particular, these drop-in technologies. I think it's very interesting because I had a sneak peek of Takaki Kasuga's presentation about his return to soil sensor. And I know that one of the metaphors that he uses for his work is that he hopes that these sensors can be like fallen leaves. So I found this kind of interesting connection between your expressions of drop-in technologies and the way that Kasuga Sensei, Mr. Kasuga is thinking to, launch his technologies. Thank you very much. Okay. So I'm going to wait for the screen to change back over to the slides. Great, thank you very much. Next, we're going to be going to our first winner's presentation, which is about the return to soil circular sensors by Takaki Kasuga, who's an assistant professor at the Institute of Scientific and Industrial Research, known as Sanken Department, at Osaka University. I'm very excited for him to join us all the way from Osaka today. And also congratulations again on your award-winning project. From here, I would like to pass the mic to Kasuga Sensei for his presentation.
So thank you for kind introduction, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. So I'm very honored to receive this award. And I'm Takaki Kasuga from Osaka University. And today I'd like to talk about my project. About the sensor devices. It's a return to the soil sensors. Now these small isopods are eating my sensor. So it's a kind of the sustainable and eco-friendly sensors. And first I will talk about my background. So no animation, okay. As you already know, the sensors are the connecting points between real space and cyberspace. So sensors can convert environmental information into digital data, and in cyberspace, information processing systems like AI or machine learning will process the input data and provide feedback to real space. So it means if we can install a lot of sensors in real space, we can increase the input data and we can improve their feedback accuracy. So for example, nowadays, many people are interested in the smart agriculture. If we can use a lot of sensors in the field, maybe we can improve the efficiency of agriculture. And also, the many sensors can be used for disaster prediction and prevention. It's quite important in Japan because there are so many natural disasters like earthquakes, typhoons, and wildfires. So maybe many sensors can help us for this kind of application. But for this kind of application, we need a sensor network. And I think the hyperdense sensor network needed. To construct hyperdense sensor network, we need to install a lot of sensors. So how can we install a lot of sensors? By hand or by drones? Maybe the ultimate method for mass installation is the air dispersal, I think. Okay. So you can see this movie. So as you can see, the seeds and the fallen leaves are deployed by wind and deployed on the ground. So please imagine if these seeds and leaves were the sensors. Maybe it would be possible to make a hyperdense sensor network. And some researchers already have this kind of idea. And some, so there's no animation. Okay. So yeah, it's technically possible to disperse a lot of sensors from the air. And some researchers already reported, but you can imagine after use, the sensors become e-waste. Can you acceptable? Maybe not, yeah. It's kind of the environmental pollution. So the technically possible, but it is not acceptable. So how can we install a lot of sensors? So I think we need eco-friendly, biodegradable sensors. So if we can make the sensors from only the eco-friendly materials like plants or soil components, maybe we can realize both of the mass installation and sustainability. So this is my concept of my research. So how can we make sensors from eco-friendly materials? So I think we should use plants as starting materials because plants are the most abundant biomass in the world. So you can see everywhere the plants, yeah. So but the sensors are made of the multiple components like the substrates, circuits, and sensors. So to make the sensors from the plants, first we need to prepare the substrates or circuits, so I mean components from plants. So how can we make these components? And now we are focusing on the nanomaterials from plants. It's called cellulose nanofibers. So the plants, including wood, have plant cell walls, and the extracted cell walls called pulps. Maybe you already know the pulps. And the size of pulp is about 10 to 50 micrometer. And if you zoom up the surface of the pulps, you can see the nanofibers. Yeah, pulps are the bundle of nanofibers. And it's a crystalline cellulose fibers, and it's called cellulose nanofibers. And in recent years, we can prepare the cellulose nanofibers from pulps by the aqueous nanofibrillation process. And after preparation, we can obtain the nanofiber water dispersion. And by using this dispersion as a starting material, we can prepare the nanofiber-based materials like films, and hydrogels, and aerogels. And now we are preparing some components from this kind of materials, like the circuit, substrate, and eco-friendly circuits, and the sensors. And 2 years ago, we have succeeded to develop a prototype of the return to the soil sensors. So this is a sensor. And this sensor was powered by the wireless power supply. And this sensor can detect the soil moisture and transmit the soil moisture as a heat signal. It's a kind of unique system, but the camera can detect the sensor position and the soil moisture both by the image recognition. That's why this sensor transmits a heat signal. So it means by image recognition, we can quickly obtain the soil moisture map. And of course, this sensor is eco-friendly, so it's biodegradable. So after use, the sensor will be degraded. No movie. So this is the. Okay, so this is a movie and the demonstration of the degradation of the sensor. So I want to show here, but it's difficult. So yeah. So anyway, this sensor can be degraded by the isopods or microorganisms in nature. So but this is just a prototype, and I need to improve them. So I will do my best. So thank you for listening.
Yes, my apologies that we couldn't see the video on here, but actually if you go to the front of FabCafe today, you can see the real sensor, and it's non-degraded, somewhat degraded, and completely degraded state. So please, I encourage you to go up to the front to see the exhibit of his work as well. And thank you very much, Takaki Kasuga, for your wonderful talk. So from now, I would like to go into our first crosstalk session with myself. I would like to warmly welcome Kalaika Vidvisis from FabCafe Bangkok. And David Benjamin to join us as well. The topic of this crosstalk is going to be centering on how we can scale up a circular bioeconomy. Okay, David, you're back. Thank you so much. All right. Oh, we can have a seat. Right. So before we dive into this, how can we scale up a circular bioeconomy? Just quickly, I'd love to hear from Kalaya about your insight and thinking about this year's theme towards a circular bioeconomy. I couldn't help but notice that the discussion in the last video by David was about microbes. And I remember whenever we were discussing about, how to create the theme this year, that was one of the first things that Kalaya said. She said, microbes are the future. We have to work with microbes. They're faster than us. They're more resilient than us, And I was like, microbes? I don't know. You're a very forward thinker, is what it is.
I think that is a trend. And then I think all of the designers nowadays, they know that bio is the solution for the design right now. Yes. So microbes, mycelium is very popular as a materials and also as a concept or theme of the design. Yes.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your thinking of circular bioeconomy more generally and about, your thinking for the theme this year? And then I would like to dive into this concept of scalability.
Okay, so first thing first, thank you so much for letting me involve in this project this year. And also the reason why we discussing about the bioeconomy is because as you know that circular economy has been talking about it like for so long. And then some of the company use it as a misconceptions. They just use it for their campaign or just to PR themselves. And then draw in many designers struggle to upcycling and then turn it into another linear economy, right? So that's why I think that with the time right now that biotechnologies become practical, I would say, and then commercializable. So we think that is a time that we can bring in the project that try to put it on the table and try to reconstruct the way we create our ecosystems and build the culture of making things. This day it has to change. And then recently, for the past 3 years, I have read many articles talking about regenerative. Although I know that for some people, they think that it might be another buzzword. Yeah, we have sustainability, we have BCG, we have ESG. But for me, regenerative is more tangible. Yeah, for sustainability, it's more like a concept. That's somewhere up in the cloud. But for regenerative, we can test it, we can prove it. Yes, so that's why that's become the idea for the theme of Circular Award this year.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm of course, I think most of the people in the audience probably have been hearing about or thinking about sustainability or sustainable development goals or something like this. And circular economy, I also find to be a very tangible thing. I'm also extremely excited for this new frontier of regenerative design, which I also find to be a lot more tangible. So I would also like to ask this question. You're talking about timeliness, this is the time, it's very exciting. And David was mentioning in his presentation as well that 10 years ago, he got this kind of annoying question of, okay, but when is this going to be actually used in a real building? When can we actually leverage this mycelium mushroom brick technology? And, now 10 years later, he's going through and, somehow becoming involved in these projects. And so anyways, I want to ask this question. Why is the shift from a linear economy to a circular bioeconomy necessary right now? What about this timeliness? What about this, crisis that David mentioned earlier today? These kinds of tipping points in our climate, for example. David, I'd like to ask you this question first, if we can get your insight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important question, and I think there's maybe an interesting combination of at least two factors that make it a good moment for this shift from a linear economy to a circular bioeconomy. So one of them I was already kind of describing, and I don't want to get too pessimistic here, but like we have a real crisis. We're in an emergency. And, I think probably everyone here knows that to some degree, that carbon emissions are causing kind of chaos in the climate. They're threatening these irreversible tipping points. And just to get you thinking about the same thing I'm thinking about, like one example of a tipping point is those glaciers that are melting. Like when they melt, they're not gonna refreeze. Like it's really hard, even if we course correct on carbon a little bit, it's going to be really difficult. Same with coral reefs, same with thousands or millions of years of carbon that's been stored in the peat, across our landscapes of the world. When that starts to thaw and the carbon gets released, like that's not going to be able to go back in our human society. That's like million-year changes. So I think there's this need to act now. There's a crisis, like I was kind of mentioning toward the end as well, that like a crisis, I mean, it can be a terrible thing, but it also can be an opportunity to change if people really recognize this is a crisis. So that I think presents one timeliness factor, that now is the time to change, to avert catastrophe. And I think and hope more and more people are recognizing that. And the second factor that I think is relevant is that the world of biology is becoming more and more powerful, more and more legible. There are new technologies that are being developed that are incredible, including some that we just saw from this amazing return to soil circular sensors project. And I think there's really, we're on the frontier of some new possibilities, including with microbes, which previously have been totally invisible and we kind of neglected them, but they're all around us and so powerful, and we're so interconnected with them that if we can start to understand that and then maybe design with it as well, I think it could open up a huge range of possibilities, including for the question that you started the day with, Kelsey, which was, what if we could design a future that we chose, that we want, instead of just accepting, kind of what's given to us. And I'm thinking by extension, instead of just like taking the reality and shifting it a tiny bit, we can just reimagine everything together. And that's probably fitting because for regenerative systems, regenerative architecture, regenerative design, I think we need to think of the whole thing. We can't just take like most of what's there and tweak it a little bit and make it like look nicer or like a little more innovative. We need to totally redesign the whole system.
Thank you so much for your comment. Yes, I'd like to also ask to Kalaya the same question. I know that before you co-founded FabCafe Bangkok, you were also working in this field at MIT, and then now you're in Thailand and you're working with all different kinds of stakeholders who are really facing the challenge of climate change, and even during COVID-19, broken supply chains and things like this. What has been your experience so far in Thailand about this?
So if you talk about the condition in Thailand, it will be about how to align the goal together. Yeah, so I'm not very good I'm not the best person to do that, but I saw many of my senior that they are good at negotiate and align the goal. If they can quickly turn that people or the stakeholder to be in the same goals, it will be easier for them to adopt the change quicker. Yes. So I think that when we come up with the new technologies, that we need the corporate to try with us. Yes, we have to convince many things, not only just like the investment cost, efficiency, and then why it's better than the others, but it's about the belief, align the vision together. Yes. So in Thailand, it's more about that.
I see. I think we're already sneaking into the next question, which is the core of this session, which is how can we scale up a circular bioeconomy? I wonder, Clay, if you would like to continue your thoughts on this. Of course, there's the aligning of the visions of the stakeholders, but is there anything else that you have in mind for this? And, perhaps are there any industries who you think are particularly ripe for this kind of quote unquote regenerative disruption?
Yes, so for the scalability, first thing first, as Professor David already mentioned, that it has to be efficient and daily use and easy to use. Right now, many of the innovation in circular economy, some of them might be not related or far away from their daily use, or so it's difficult for them to pick up. Yes. So for scalability, is like when the iPhone got adopted, they already have an ecosystem. They already want to use that. So when the products available, it's very easy for them to pick up. Or another thing that we discussed earlier, that why AI is becomes our daily uses every day. Yes. Yeah. So is it possible that our circular economy inventions can be something like that?
Yeah. I think that would be great. What we were discussing previously is that, several years ago, whenever AI was first hitting the scene, perhaps there were some naysayers or people who would think, oh, this is just another trend of technology, maybe it will pass by. But now it's completely invaded our daily life, the way we work, the way we play, the way even we sleep or have our own biological functions. And I think it would be interesting to, try to anticipate this kind of world where a circular bioeconomy and the principles around it, including regenerative design, come in the same way. David, I recall from your presentation that you were measuring the bio-welding and the living bricks with time, cost, and carbon emissions. So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about this in relation to this question around scaling up a circular bioeconomy.
Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about. Scaling up, definitely I've been thinking a lot about. And the time, cost, and carbon. So, one thing that I've come to realize, and sorry if I'm kind of sharing my own personal journey, too much more than just ideas and designs. But, just like I've had this personal journey from working on this thing 10 years ago that was just kind of a futuristic idea to now thinking, hey, we really need not only innovative ideas, but a path to scaling up for all those ideas. So I've also changed a little bit, like from thinking that as a measure of sustainability, we need to just get really good at thinking about carbon. So that was my thinking from, say 5 years ago. Hey, it's really all about carbon. It's not the only thing that's important, but it's the most time sensitive thing that's important, the carbon emissions and the total, and that's what's really driving the climate crisis. So 5 years ago, total focus on carbon. That's what I was thinking about. We need better tools for measuring. We need to reduce carbon. And more recently, I've been thinking, if we want to scale up that thinking about carbon and that reducing of carbon, then we need the carbon to be in the context of these other things that are important to us. So in other words, a carbon calculator alone or carbon knowledge alone is necessary but not sufficient. We also need to understand carbon in the context of cost and of things like livability or time, because that's what's going to allow us to make the carbon number actionable. If all we know is the carbon and we aren't able to balance it with other things that are important to us, then it's going to be less actionable. It's going to be less implemented. It's going to scale up less. I had a couple of other quick thoughts. I already described a little bit, like, what are the factors of scaling up? And one of the things that I'm trying to think about in my own work and propose to people here to think about as well, and obviously I'd love feedback on this, but is that maybe to scale up, it has to be practical, like the kind of drop-in technology idea, and that may require some compromises. It may require that we take this amazing idea of a biomaterial that's like super regenerative and circular, and because it's not yet ready alone to be in today's buildings with today's building codes, then we add a little bit of a synthetic material. So we create a hybrid, and we are willing to compromise as a temporary step to getting to the ultimate goal of fully regenerative biomaterial, sustainable. So the hybrid, I think, could be important for scaling up. I think that we should also be thinking about not only inventing the technology and the functional thing of like a brick that's made from agricultural waste, but it's still strong. A sensor that is biodegradable. What an amazing idea that we just heard about. So we need to make that function, but we also need to make it desirable. And that's a thing that I've been thinking about with my students at Columbia and my community of other designers and architects. We have the capacity to design things. We need to design in the desire for this change to happen, because that will help it snowball and gain momentum. If we have this great thing, but nobody really is convinced, or nobody really wants it, or nobody understands that future or desires that future, then it's going to be less scalable. And the final thing that I'm thinking about, it's so practical, and I guess you mentioned it, Kelsey, but I'm just going to repeat it in different words. I spend a lot of my time these days talking with very practical people, policy people, trying to do process engineering, take the invention in the lab and scale it up to something that is replicable. And some of these people talk and think about the green premium, meaning it costs more to do sustainability. And they talk about like, okay, well, we don't want the green premium to be too high. We need to convince people to pay the green premium. But I've really come to believe that the best path to scaling up is removing the green premium entirely, making the sustainable option, the bio option, the regenerative option, the same cost or less than the traditional option, the status quo option. And I know that sounds super hard, and it is, but I think it's possible. And one great case study is renewable energy, which used to have a green premium, like solar and wind. And now it's even cheaper than fossil fuels. We've removed the green premium. We've almost reversed the green premium. And I think we can do that. And some people need to be working on that, I think, for the circular bioeconomy and for biomaterials. And I think it could be achievable. If we're building bricks out of waste, then, hey, I think there's a path to making that even cheaper than bricks out of non-renewable materials.
Thank you very much for your reply. You mentioned about the desirability of these solutions, and this is actually a key point that we're going to be going into for session 2, because personally I believe that this is the great role of the artists and designers and other kinds of storytellers, because they have a way to express the value of these solutions that can shake your heart. So I think that we've kind of started coming into this question already, but I just to repeat, what will it take for regenerative design to become a standard approach rather than an experimental niche? Or maybe to ask the question in a different way, of course, we have some quote-unquote naysayers who say, okay, we don't want to pay for this kind of green premium. But at the same time, nature, we understand it to be uncontrollable, right? And the community at FabCafe Species is looking at this as well. How can we build up trustability from stakeholders, from potential investors, if we're dealing with something that humans might not be able to 100% control? I think that this kind of harkens back to this mindset shift between a human-centered focus of human-centered design versus nature-centered design. But I wonder, Kalaya, do you have any comments about this one in particular?
So this one is the reason why I pick up Arthur's works, the Self, because I think it's a good example that it doesn't require like high technologies. It's like very close to us, daily use, and then it's very impactful. And then we just like, if we just use it, doing this, it will already change all of the problem of the other products that we bought to solve the current problem. So I think he will talk about it later. So I'm not going to spoil you guys. Okay. Yes. So the question is like, it's important, as Professor already said, that right now is not the time that we just like keep doing the linear economy. Is not our choice anymore. It has to be regenerative because we have to coexist with the nature, and whatever we do, it has to have a low impact to the world, to the nature. Yes, and then keep coexist with the nature is the most important thing. But the way the School of Design this day, I think it's still focusing on market, focusing on human. So most of the time, that conventional way of teaching is kind of like not following up the current situations. So that's why like Global Go Jams, other initiators, other leaders, they try to come up with the idea of nature centered design, so that instead of thinking about the market, we have to think about the nature first. And with this award, we would like to highlight how people as a human can empower the nature system that already good enough. Yes. Even now, we cannot like photosynthesis. We cannot live with like air, only like the plant. Yes. So that system is already like the best, the best solution that people cannot invent the same technology following them. So why we just like support them? They can do their work, and we just amplified it. So that kind of like invention become many goals for projects around the world. Like we already talked about the geomers last year, that they use the phytomining to improve the quality of the soil. Yes, the Grow Your Own Cloud by Clark Silas, that they try to reinvent the new way of data storage, because we know that right now we consume a lot of data, but at the same time it take over the place and then create many bad things to the world. So they try to come up with a new way, disrupt the way we do it. But those kind of things, as you already said, is much as an experiment niche. So to turn it into a standard approach, it has to be close to us, like infrastructures, like the way that Arthur did. I think it's more crucial for the first step.
Thank you so much. I remember whenever you first introduced me to this project, Grow Your Own Cloud, you had mentioned, why is it that we trust our phones and we trust these hard drives to keep all of our data because we think it's permanent. We're looking at it and thinking it's permanent, but at the same time, we don't trust 100 or 200 or 300-year trees, which have, outlived most of our lifespan, well, all of our lifespans. This was also very always a very insightful point from you. I think that we're running low on time, so I'm just going to go now to the last question. And David, please, chime in if you have something related to the previous question. But to both of you, quickly, I just would like to ask, what do you think is the future of regenerative design and the circular bioeconomy? Maybe first we can hear from David and then hear from Kalaya to wrap up this session.
Great. Well, yeah, really fascinating discussion. So thank you both for those really interesting points. This is a little bit, I guess, touches on the previous question, but also the question we're seeing here. So for the previous question, one thing that I think is really important is to present both options or multiple options. So rather than looking at one option alone, which is like, it could be like looking at the bio future or this, bio innovation. Does it have risks? Is it proven? Like, how long is it going to last? There are a lot of questions to ask, and there could be, potentially unknowns and risks. And like you said, Kelsey, unpredictability, uncontrollability. But we need to compare that to the other option. And I think it's really important to frame it that way for society, for designers, for people commissioning design, but for society as a whole, that we shouldn't just look at one option alone. We need to look at the two options. And then, I think becomes more obvious that like the do nothing option, the status quo option also has risks. So we need to compare, and we need to think about like the pros and cons, comparatively, of both the fossil fuel world of efficiency and the things we have now and the way things work now, and compare that to the renewable world of circularity and see like which balance of pros and cons do we want for the future. And now for the final question, I think the future is like a movement, and that's also, I think, what's gonna be a tipping point in a good way for like a revolution in a circular bioeconomy. So we need to we need these circular awards and this circular summit and things like this, bringing together a community of people who are thinking about these things and working on these things. We won't have all the answers, but if we create a movement, then I think that's really important. And we need to really show how this path forward, the circular bioeconomy, can not only be innovative and kind of exciting, but it's also potentially healthier and more social and more livable and more rewarding. We need to like get people to think like, what kind of world do we want to live in? A couple of examples of this in architecture, people who go into a building made of wood often remark, it smells really good in here. Construction with mass timber, which is a biomaterial, is quieter, it's safer, it tends to have less construction injuries, and it can go up quicker. So these kind of things, like there are a lot of benefits and co-benefits of this world, and I think we need to kind of promote them and celebrate them as a social movement.
Thank you so much for that comment. I really appreciate that. It reminds me a little bit of Laura's work with circadian rhythms, which I'm very excited to explore in the next session. Kalaya, would you like to take us home with your vision for this question?
Yes, so I would say that the future lies in the hand of the new generation, of course, because of the technology is already available for them, and I believe that it will become much better, and also they will know how to implement it, because design is to create another possibilities. And then I think that many designers like Lala already did provide the visions that if we don't have to build the bulb, line the wire, fix it every 5 years, replace it all the time and create their e-waste, but instead just use her system. Yes, this older matter will be gone and is more friendly to the world. So this kind of like vision, we would like to push young designers, young artists to keep moving forward into this direction, and then remind them that this is their world. Will they want to live in the world like this? Or would they want to make a little bit better for themselves, for all of us? Yes.
Thank you so much. And there might be some people in the world who, if I hear this answer, I would think to myself, oh, you're giving the responsibility to the kids? But actually, I know that you're doing so much work with university students all over Thailand and in Japan as well, and during COVID online. So I know that your insight is genuine, and I know you're also working to empower these students as well.
Yes, I know that sometimes we question them, but at the end, they are the one who live in that world. Yes. So sometimes I still believe that my way of thinking, my way of thinking is too old for them. Yes, because everything is changing. Yeah,
So
we have to accept that, and then yes, we need to adapt to that world. Yes.
Yes, and try to predict it, because who knows what we make might actually not be relevant by the time that they get to the point of making decisions. In any event, thank you very much for everyone for joining this first session. I really appreciate all of your attention. David, thank you so much for joining us from all the way in New York City. I can imagine it's around 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
Something
that's
like
right,
this?
4:30.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today. And I would just like to have one round of applause for all the discussions happening up until now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kalaya. And from now, I would like to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. I know that it's laughably too short of a break, but if you would like to stand up and stretch your legs, and we'll see you here in 10 minutes for the remaining presentations and crosstalk. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, we're going to be starting the next session in about 2 minutes. So if you can come to start, have a seat for the rest of our programming. Thank you very much. Okay, I would like to go ahead and start the next session of our event. So if everyone could please return to the seats, we're going to be starting the next session from now. Yes. So if everyone in the back can please come up forward, we're going to be starting the next sessions from now. Great. I hope that everybody could get a little bit of refreshment. We're going to be moving forward from now. So the next winning presentation that I am extremely excited to present is coming from Arthur Guillamino. I tried so hard. Guillamino, who's going to be presenting about his award-winning work, Piss Soap. So without further ado, I would like to encourage everyone to give a warm round of applause for Arthur.
Hi, everyone. Well, as you got to understand, my name is Arthur Guillamino. I'm a French eco-deviant artist based in Amsterdam, and I'm here to present the Piss Soap project. So I guess the first question you might have is ecodeviance. What is it? So for me, ecodeviance is an artistic practice that is a set of methods that is aimed to question our social dogmas, all towards like benefiting the human, but also the environment around us. So that's really kind of, let's say, the base practice for Piss Soap, where it was born. So it kind of revolves around a few core concepts, and I think it's kind of a bit good if I go over them for you. So the first one would be abundance. It's like I refuse to see life in a sense of scarcity. And if we look at material around us, we have an abundant amount of material, it being waste, it being natural, synthetic. There is so many things around us that deserves to be transformed, that deserve third life, fourth life, eternities of life. So that is really the idea. It's like Piss Soap looks at the world with abundance. The second core concept would be care. And I think like David explained it so well, is if we make the climate transition a hardship, no one is really going to be seduced to do so. And if we make actually the climate transition something pleasureful, something careful, something where the human, everyone can really benefit from it, I think it's really going to be much funnier, and also much more people will go and do it. So that's the idea also of ecodeviance. And I mean, Piss Soap is also here to be an hygienic soap. So of course it is caring for you. It is killing the microbes that I know are cool and resilient, but sometimes we don't want them around us. So those are also important. We also talked about it, but circularity here is quite important. And usually I like to illustrate those ecological kind of concepts. So if we talk about sustainability, we're here, and whatever we do, we kind of stay here. When we talk about circularity, we're here, and then we go do something, and then we just come back at the same point. And that's really kind of something that I think we need to focus our attention towards, is like whatever we do, we don't stay where we are, but we keep on moving, acknowledging that we need to come back at least at the same spot. And that leads to actually regeneration, which is also something that I think ecodeviance is interested in. So circularity, sustainability, where regeneration is like we're here and we're going backward, actually. We are benefiting the environment while doing something. So deviant, it's in the name, is like I invite everyone to be critical towards the established dogmas that we have in society. Think, who is it benefiting? Who is really enjoying the fact that maybe we're not using, well, plastic straws and all of this? I'm inviting you to think, how can I also think for myself and be critical towards those things? So that's a bit ecodeviance in simple words. Another question you might ask is, how the hell do you think of creating Piss Soap from the first time? Well, long story short, it all started in Athens, and I don't know if you went to Athens, Greece. There is lesbian soap everywhere in the street. Lesbian soap is a soap that is from the island of Lesbos. I see the smiles. It is a soap that has been created millennials ago, and basically it's the most simple olive oil soap. And you find it nowadays, millennials after, in the street of Athens. And there, I also went to a bathhouse and learned about the antique use of urine. So at the time, in antique Greece, urine was wonderful. They were using it for brushing their teeth, doing laundry, tanning leather. It was really amazing. Actually, in antique Rome, urine was taxed as well. I mean, nowadays, you can make amazing fertilizer. But where is the urine in our days, millennials are after? Nowhere. And there I was. Let's put them together, Piss Soap. Well, that's basically where the Piss Soap started, where it was created. One thing that Piss Soap is really aiming for is that I am not alone. It is really important that we create connection, that we create networks. And I work with many institutions throughout Europe, and now I can add the crQlr here in Japan. It's like I have institutions to recycle waste. I have institutions to hold workshop. I have institutions that are also for education. So once again, it's like this soap is not a standalone project. The idea is really to create networks of change makers. So it's like, there is here the recipe, there is soaps in the toilet. It's like, it's meant for everyone to come, to experience, talk to your friends, to your neighbors about piss soap. That's the idea. It's like a rhizomatic expansion of a crazy yet very tangible project. I'm really fast in presentation, so I'll go to my last slide, and I actually want to just leave you with a few words that are important for me. Piss soap really aims to deprogram Western vision upon disgust. We have been told what is disgusting. Usually we have been told that our body are places of shame, that our body fluids are dangerous, potential contamination. So here I really invite you to review this idea and also review what is disgusting, because usually disgust is also used against marginalized, discarded, it being population, people, materials. So it's really like disgust is a tool of propaganda, sometimes more than actually something that protects us. The second thing is embrace deviance as an act of resistance. So we hear a lot about civil disobedience. Well, I feel like deviance is a good way of going in that direction, of like refusing the status quo and thinking for yourself, thinking critically about those aspects in life. The second one is create pleasureful, conscious future. And I think like David explained it, I mean, it's clearly a good topic. It's like desire, pleasure needs to be at the center of climate change. Otherwise, we will never get there all together having fun. Because if it's really harsh, we're not going to have fun and we're not going to do it. Last one is practice eco-deviance as an anti-capitalistic self-care ritual. So it's like, please get the recipe, make some piss soap, clean your hands, and each time you do so, remember that you created this with body fluid, with your body fluid, if that's your kink in that sense. But remember that it is also something that you can do against an industry that tells you that you need to buy certain products and all of those things. So really think that eco-deviance here can be both for your benefit, but also like resisting a certain industry that is lobbied against that. So thank you so much, and please enjoy the soap. It's in the toilet, and I would love to hear some feedbacks.
Thank you very much, Arthur. And as he mentioned, there is some soap for sampling in the washroom in the back. This is the real one, piss soap. So there's an exhibit up here at the front if you would like to come see it after this next crosstalk session. Great. The next speaker that we're going to be welcoming to the stage is Laura Benetton, who's joining us from London. Laura is a multidisciplinary contemporary artist, and she's going to be giving a presentation about her award-winning work, BioMoon Lab. Please join me in welcoming Laura to the stage. It's going to be up here. Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, hi everyone. So I'm really delighted to be here today from all the way to UK, long jet lag. And I just want to also thank you, like Loftwork and FabCafe for this incredible award. So my project is called BioMoon Lab. So what is BioMoon Lab? So basically, sorry, yeah. So, no, let's come back a little bit. I think there's a slide missing. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, so basically BioMoon Lab is growing living organism, different living organisms as bacteria and dinoflagellates, and harnessing their growth, and then inquire about the different possibilities of generate biolight and replaces instead of the use of artificial light, but in the context of contemporary art. So basically what I try to do with my work, let's see if I can. Sorry, I'm not. Here we are. Yes. So this is what I'm trying to do in my work. It's just I try, as we mentioned before with your conversation with David, try to instigate a sort of like sense of wonder through living organism, and then in which way? Through a different way of experimenting with them in the lab and through the work. So at the end of my essay at my master, I was really kind of like, I don't know, just like I saw this poem and I was like, wow, this is actually embedding exactly what I've seen and what I felt the first time that I saw the light of dinoflagellate, which, by the way, you can see the light there in the corner. Is there living light? I'm going to talk about this later. And I say, okay, I can't believe it. I just want to see what can I do more? Can I really try to see if I can produce more light and embed this into my work? So slowly, I try to work with different biologists in the Central San Martin University to help me to basically make my vision a reality. But a little bit of myself, just a tiny bit. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I work in the intersection of art and science. But my background is as a painter, and in 2022, I received my master's degree at Central San Martin University. Let's carry on. What is bioluminescence? So bioluminescence is a chemically inspired phenomenon and originated from different living organisms, especially in a near total state of darkness. In this case, in my work, you will explore the biolight of dinoflagellates. But where did I start? I also have been inspired from nature, in particular from the light, the blue light, in the beautiful, colorful wings of butterfly like Morpho. Why? Because Morpho, they have this nanoscale speckle in their wings, and when the light hit them, they reflect through the phenomenon of diffraction this blue light. And it's absolutely incredible phenomenon. So I had the opportunity to work at the Natural History Museum and collaborate with scientists. So I look really closely to these colors and then see how I can translate in painting into my work. So these are some of my painting. And then in the past few years, I had the opportunity to work with light. But what kind of light? Artificial light, LED light. So this was, for me, the shifting point of my practice. So what I did next, I'm very mindful about the time, by the way. I thought, okay, so what about challenge game up? What about if I try actually to grow and culture living bacteria as V. fischeri and see if I can produce enough light to replace the light of the LED light? Obviously, told me that I was crazy. I was like, you're crazy. What are you thinking about? You don't even have a background in biology, which is true, by the way. I don't have a background in biology. I learned everything through the fantastic team at Central San Martin. So this was the title of my thesis, and then how can the study of dinoflagellates, organisms, and V. fischeri bacteria are embedded into contemporary art practice. So long story short, I cultivate these bacteria for a long time, okay? Before, I was playing at home with the dinoflagellates that we're going to see in a minute. And then lately, and slowly, okay, there are a few lights about dinoflagellates, but because I'm mindful about the time, I'm trying to leave this a little bit of time. So what happened? These are beautiful images, by the way, at the microscope of the dinoflagellates. So these are small monocellular organisms that live and emit light through the circadian rhythm, okay? Which is a rhythm that we've got as well. And then I cultivated by providing them a rhythm of 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. So the dinoflagellates that you're gonna see them in the corner of my installation are dinoflagellates that actually have been sleeping all night and now they are awake. So if you shake the flask inside the dark box in the corner, okay, in a minute, you will see that through the shaking, they will meet this incredible, beautiful light, which is magical. And then you've gotten a possibility today to witness this magical effect. But coming back to the future bacteria, these bacteria, sorry, maybe I'm running. I cultivate this bacteria in Petri dish at the beginning, okay? And what about the shape? I'm gonna tell you in a minute about the shape. Actually, we're talking about the light. So basically, I navigate this process at the beginning to cultivate the bacteria into Petri dishes and capturing the light. So again, if you look at the corner, where is my work, you will see a beautiful, I think it's beautiful, cycle of light, which is an image that I capture with the camera, okay, of 72-hour cycle of the light emitting from this bacteria. So through thousands of images, I create this composition, which is a digital artwork, actually, and I created 50 limited edition prints of this beautiful cycle. And this artwork is called BioMoon. Okay, so there's a lot of slides, so I'm going to skip. Here we are. So this is the cycle, and then believe it or not, this is a maximal, this is, yes, of light inside the Petri dish. But I just want to say quickly, if maybe my slide, like coming back, I'm gonna just like skip this. I just want to say that this is a nature inspired design. So what you can see actually is a wing of a butterfly. So again, we're coming back of your inspiration. My inspiration, as I said, is nature, and this is the design of actually laser cutting butterfly wings. So what I did, and again, you can see the bacteria actually is under resin in the installation. So what I did is laser cut the shape of the butterfly and let the bacteria grow inside the Petri dish. Obviously, I'm not a scientist. They told me, Laura, you might fail like 100 times, but try again, and I try 101. Okay? At the end, it happened, and I was so happy. So I was like, now I've got the protocol. Now I know how I can make it happen. And I make it happen a lot of time until I be able basically to confirm my hypothesis. And after that, I said, game up. So what I tried to do, I generate my own system, which is basically, you can see a bioreactor here. This is a small bioreactor, and we've got two flasks, one with nutrients and one with waste. This is the tube. So my original idea of replacing the LED light tube with actually natural light. And the living organism is here growing. And then here is the nutrient. And then through the bioreactor, automatically generating waste. I've got the camera to capturing and monitoring the growth and the changing. So yes, I've been able to confirm through my idea that yes, if we want, we can. We can make a change. We can think about different and sustainable way of approaching, even inside contemporary art approaches. But where is the problem? Million of problems. Don't even, if you want, I can start like from one, which is like contamination. Yes, I need not a lab one, which was a Central St. Martin. I need like a lab with like 100 team of scientists helping me. But is it possible? Yes, it's possible. If I found the investment and someone that can help me, it's possible. And second, yeah, you need to basically think about having a vision and help from the community as well, and someone that really believe on your idea. So I'm aware about the time. I know that the time it's gone. But this is BioMoon Lab, and this is my presentation, and I hope you really enjoy, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your presentation. So, gonna go. No, it's okay. We have a lot of beautiful images here. If you're interested in contacting Laura for further collaboration, she has her email address here. You can also talk to her tonight. And the work that is being exhibited by BioMoon Lab, as well as Piss Soap, Return to Soil, Circular Sensors, and others, are going to be going on until March 26th. Great. So now I would like to welcome to the stage Annie Corkman, Laura Benetton, and Arthur Yamino for a crosstalk on the topic of how can we leverage the power of creativity to shift to a nature-centered mindset. Great. First, before we kick off, I wonder, Annie, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Thank you. So my name is Anni Korkman. I work as the program director of Helsinki Design Week, and I've had the privilege and joy of working as one of the jury members for this year's CirQlr Award. And I want to thank Kelsey and the FabCafe community and Loftwork team for having me here in Tokyo and inviting me to be a part of this journey that I've learned a lot with. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, Annie. Great. So basically, I believe that artists, designers, and curators are at their core storytellers who have the power to move our hearts and create literacy with their expressions. I would like to ask you each individually how you describe today's event theme and the exhibition theme as well, living loops, in your own words. I wonder if we can kick off with Arthur. Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, for me, as a Earth system is a living loop in its own already. So there is so many examples of or microorganism, fungi that eats waste in that sense. So it is a natural process. Maybe something that I would like also to mention is we talk a lot about circular economy, but if we go to the etymology of it, is like it comes from oikos, which is the home, but nomi basically comes from managing. And for me, I rather talk about circular ecology because circular ecology looks at the interrelationship between organisms. So there is not this hierarchical understanding of management, but much more about like a horizontal relationship between all of us, including the microbes, the microorganism, and us human. So, and one thing also that I feel like is amazing with living loops is like the idea of living, of aliveness, of change in that sense. And I think also David talked a lot about it. And I want to quote Octavia Butler here that says that all that you touch, you change, all that changes you. And that's definitely what for me, like the living here is about also. It's about acknowledging that we are impacting everything around us. So we are part of those living loops. And at the end of the day, we will also become part of those waste that little insect will eat, like the sensors.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your comment and sticking true to your, how do I say, the core concept that you initially provided, which is inviting everyone to stay critical. And I do think that this word ecology is an incredibly important keyword to keep in mind whenever we discuss about living loops. Laura, you're someone who's actually working directly with, you know, living creatures with circadian rhythms, and you've been looking at these loops. I wonder what you think about this concept as someone working directly with other creatures.
Well, definitely it's just kind of like put yourself in front of the reality that we're not separated, and then basically non-human intelligence is actually part of us. But it's like I think the cyclical process of like growing, breathing, growing, evolving, and then it's basically not only a metaphor, but it's also a manifestation of kind of like life and the cycle of life that is sometimes, because of our life that is very busy, we forgot actually how important cycles are. Like circadian rhythm is like through the observation of these living organisms, for me, it just made me more aware about my personal rhythm, about thinking, okay, when I've got actually experienced lack of sleep, I'm not the same person. I'm absolutely the most annoying person in the world, and then irritable, and then I'm like, what's going on? It's just almost having a different identity. But look, I actually learned something from these tiny, tiny, small living organisms, and how in actually nurturing them and then helping them, because actually I think it's about also reciprocity. So thinking about the circular in terms also could be also reciprocity. Like I'm trying to care about them, and then it's coming back in a way that it was really unexpected. Actually, it's almost like having a pet at home as well, because you have to remember how to feed them, and then remember when to set up the light. And then if you forget about it, you can see them, they respond to you in a way that is like not emitting much light, and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? They are dying. It's like, so actually I will invite everyone to experience one day, if you can, just like get some dinoflagellates and experience this. Instead of getting a cat, maybe you can try a different way. But yes, shall I pass this?
Yeah, your word reciprocity really sticks out to me. And I do also want to warn some of the people who might go and explore the dinoflagellates today. They do get tired, just like us, because they're alive. So yeah, I just want to warn you in advance, if it's not like the color of a flashlight, please be aware that maybe there's a little bit under the weather. Yes. Right. Yes. Thank you so much. So Annie, I think of you as a kind of master curator, and I think that you find beauty and aesthetically pleasing things, and you're going around Scandinavia, I think not just Helsinki, but around the world even, with your keen eye. And of course we're talking about living loops in terms of like actual living things, but I think there's also living loops with culture and well-being and things like that. And I wonder if you have some comment about how you approach this concept of living loops.
Thank you for your nice words, and congratulations on the great theme. I think living loops will be something that we'll all have in our minds and hearts after the summit. Maybe echoing something that Arthur and Laura were saying, my words that I've taken from a theme are actually quite similar. I think of nurturing continuous transformation, and I really like the idea of when managing change, we'd rather change the word management into allowing, and maybe just try not to be forceful, but rather encouraging. So at this moment in history, when human ingenuity and natural intelligence are converging in these ways, and scientists and designers, artists and engineers are collaborating to strengthen and accelerate these nature's own regenerative cycles, advances in biofabrication, biodesign, regenerative materials, they show us that circularity is not merely about reducing harm, it's about actively also giving back and enriching and evolving. And this is type of vocabulary that for me, the theme suggests us to consider. And then thinking about the continuous transformation, it's to state the obvious, the regeneration is not something instantaneous. It's a process of perseverance and care. And just as nature cycles take this time to restore, our efforts to align with them demand long-term commitment, continuous adaptation, and a willingness to unlearn these rigid, extractive ways of thinking.
Thank you very much. I think I might write a theory on this. No, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I encourage everyone in the audience to also think for themselves, whenever you think about living loops, whenever you think about your own circulation or the circulation in your society or your bodies or even politics, what does that mean to you? The next question that I would like to move to is, how do you approach making collaboration with nature and natural systems more appealing, more desirable? I'm not talking desirable in the sense of setting a marketing plan and a KPI and trying to tackle it in this way, but I think that artists, designers, curators, and more have a way of expressing these concepts that can get people on board in ways that numbers, KPIs, carbon reduction numbers, etc. Cannot. So I'd like to maybe first ask this question to Laura. So how do you approach making collaboration with nature and natural systems more appealing or desirable?
Well, first thing is just trying to approach with a sense of curiosity. So I think that desires comes from a sense of curiosity, first of all. So I always try to generate a sense of wow. But the wow effect is very, very hard to attain. For this reason, I really kind of like work with any project I'm doing with a lot of trying to like spend time on my ideas and see how can really, I think about the audience as well. I don't know if it's correct or no, because sometimes when I've been studying art, they always suggest me, don't think about the audience. It's your work, it's your works. Maybe 20 years ago, maybe, yeah, maybe, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But right now, no, I want to think about the audience, because the audience are gonna experience the work. And the way I'm approaching my work, especially with this work, is using nature-inspired design. So as you can see, I've been laser cutting into the Petri dish, actually the frame of the skeleton of the butterfly wings. So why? Because also butterfly is almost like a symbol that can be perceived not only from the general public instead of like maybe like adults, but also from children. So I try always to think about inclusivity as well, and to have an approach that can communicate, in this case science, to the public through art that can be accessible. So definitely I use organic form and nature-inspired design. This is for me very important. And then in this case, of course, I'm using BioLite as well. And then sustainability is at my core as a value. But I will say that at the moment, colors as well, different colors. When I work and express my practice in painting, I use color from Butterfly from the Rainforest. So there are different aspects. And then I've got actually some notes here, but I can't really read and talk. I'm not really one of this person, because you will see me and we'll see.
No, your answer is beautiful. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So yeah, I will just leave the organically to our.
Yeah. So, but you mentioned this like wow, this wow moment and inspiration, and I think that this is something that Annie is also, encouraging through her design weeks. Not only Helsinki Design Week, but other art initiatives. And Annie, I wonder if you have any comment about, how it is that you are approaching making, the work that you do more appealing, and if you have any examples from Helsinki Design Week or other art initiatives where people are using nature-centered designs, I would love to hear about these.
I have a few thoughts, actually. As designers and artists, we have to make working with nature desirable, yeah? And this is a big mindset shift from the mindset of sacrificing the one of beauty, innovation, deep engagement. Instead of framing these regenerative practices as obligations, they could be seen as opportunities for creativity, for connection, and even pleasure. And I think events are actually a fantastic tool for that. And I think we can all agree just by sharing the air and the energy here tonight. For any designer maybe thinking about these things, I want to talk about the importance of beauty, how regenerative design has to be visually and tactilely appealing. It's not the most important thing, but it's very important. We love beauty more than statistics. If these, for example, regenerative materials and practices can look and feel desirable, luxurious, or futuristic, they can become aspirational. And mentioning design weeks as a platform, they can be quite good for showcasing that. In my list, I also have engaging the senses to create a sense of wonder, which Pissot might be a good example of, which I also think, by the way, mentioning the wow factor, I think my first reaction to Pissot was, factor, and I couldn't stop thinking about the project after it. So the storytelling can also raise emotions in that sense, which takes me to my third point, which is telling stories. that evoke emotion and connection. I mentioned statistics, nothing to connect with, however, narratives very strongly are. If a regenerative design can tell a compelling story, whether through a product, a space, experience, innovation, it always becomes personal and makes us engage to it. Also playfulness, interactiveness, and show examples of how unexpected things can work together. And then my last one would be designing for ownership and collaboration. When people feel that they are part of a movement, which was also mentioned here before, they're always more likely to embrace it. Co-creation, maker spaces, regenerative community projects, they all help create a shared sense of responsibility, but most importantly, pride of being part of something and being part of the movement. So yeah, my conclusion would be designing desire. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, of course, I think you all know I'm going to be asking Arthur the same question next, but just to make a small connection, you talk about this word pride, for example, and I think that perhaps in the history of circular, Arthur is the one who has embodied his project. I mean, look, come on, sorry, all my notes. Truly embodied his project. And, for the people who are having this kind of reaction, this gut reaction that Annie describes, they're just you're ready for that. And you're ready for that not only with the engaging element of exchanging human urine for soap. By the way, it doesn't cost anything. You can't buy it. This is a very interesting point to me as well. But you have this theory that goes even deeper, which you can explain to anybody and everybody, which is a huge literacy tool. And I just want to know, what do you think? How are you approaching making this more appealing? If I haven't already summarized it, how can you give us some insight about this?
I mean, yeah, it's from the get-go. It was very simple understanding that making a soap out of waste is not going to have a wow factor, and people won't come, and the reaction is usually ugh, which is exactly what I aim for, because that's exactly the topic there. For me, what is important here and how piss soap really transgress the need for beauty or appeal is that it is wildly universal. It's made out of waste you have at home. It's made with equipment you have at home. It's doable by anyone. So in a sense, it's about transforming mundane acts into a political one P at a time, I want to say. And in that sense, also the storytelling there is really crucial, because of course people are going to be suspicious. They will be having a lot of questions, and I will be there to answer usually. But that's why also piss soap needs to be interactive. That's why I want you to try. The first thing people will come, they will smell it because they think it smells like piss. I invite you to smell it. It smells delicious. So for me, it's more about the sense of wonder and appeal. It's a surprise that I want to create, in a sense that people will come with the lowest standards to the project and hopefully leave the space with thinking, oh wow, I changed my mind about at least what can urine do, what my cooking oil can do, all of those aspects. So how to say, it's I act more about the surprise than actually the beauty or the sublime. And to be honest, it's like the disgust that people have towards the project is the core motivation for me to continue doing it.
Thank you very much. Actually, it wasn't lost on me that whenever you described the smell of the piss soap, you didn't tell us whether or not it smells like pee. You just said it smells delicious. This is how you create this element of desire. No, I won't give it away. I'll let you smell it for yourself. It's lovely. Great. So question number 3, and I know we only have a few minutes left, but I want to ask, what emotions do you want people to experience, and what shifts in mindset do you hope to inspire through your work? I think that we've already started to hit on this a little bit, but if there's something that you would like to add to this, maybe we can start with Arthur, and then with Laura, and then finally with Annie for this question.
I mean, it would segue from the previous question, but definitely I think like the fact that Piss Soap is on the paper really dubious, but as an experience, I think it leaves you with clean hands and with a sense of wondering, hey, what did I think about those things previously, and how am I reacting from the get-go now? But also it really hopes to be inspiring for this process of rethinking, of deprogramming, to extend to many other aspects of the life in that sense. So it really tackles different social stigmas, especially towards waste and discarded matter that we usually think are just good to load into trashes. And my idea is like, they might be golden, I mean, literally, but they might be golden things that you're basically putting away, but that can also be potential pollutants. So in that sense, I think the feelings that I want to create are also embodied, because I think like that's why I tell you to come and smell it, and I invite you once again to go and try it in the toilet. Is like your body will know what is okay and what is not, and I think that that's what Piss Soap has the potential to do, is using your body to tell you actually your urine is not that bad.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that comment. Laura, how about yourself? What is the kind of core mindset change that you're hoping to bring with the aesthetics and ethereal side of your work?
Well, I was actually reading my note to remember like a few interesting things that I was thinking. Obviously, so one important thing is like making sure that nature's intelligence is visible. So I think that is really important for the people that maybe they don't even have a plant at home. I think that maybe just like approaching different, for example, in this case, is like artwork. With this sort of approach can make you realize and then create a sort of awareness. And then, and also one very interesting thing. Yes, so basically this, just like this shift to make us feeling participants rather than controllers. So it's a shift about reciprocity and respect, not also sustainability. So also about respect. So I think that mainly through my work, of course, first thing I would like to share also knowledge. So knowledge that maybe a lot of people are not aware that there are living organisms that produce biolight. So I don't know why, but a lot of people approach me and they were like, really? Yes, yes. So just get curious, just try to read, try to inform yourself, because you can't imagine how much things you can learn in nature. So, and this phenomenon is incredible and is widespread. And actually, we can produce light and use this light at home instead of artificial light. We need support. We need people that believe in our idea. And this is, I believe, what I would like. I would like to find people that want to support, for example, creators or artists like me, like Arthur, like everyone, to believe and support our ideas and make it, our vision for the future realistic. This is my hope.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, again, she's kind of referencing, you know, this vision of the artist, but it's also coming back to literacy, having other people become empowered with the knowledge of what's going on in the world as well. Thank you very much. Annie.
This would have actually been something I wanted to highlight as well. In my work in organizing design and art events and exhibitions and gatherings and communication, I find that one of the most important things is inclusion, inviting people, this community-centric approach where invitation leads to inclusion, leads to empowerment, especially when design is such a powerful tool in explaining the change, this complex world that we're living in, and to make use of it or make sense of it, even it can all be done through the use of design. So if in my work or at what we do with my team, we are able to invite people and talk about things in a way that everyone can understand, that's already I don't know, something that we find meaning in and consider it to be quite important.
Thank you very much. And I think that, you know, through the concept of living loops, whenever we talk about inclusion, again, it's not just inclusion of people, but inclusion of every creature in the living environment. So I deeply appreciate your comment. So thank you very much, all of you. I would like to conclude the second session of today's event. If I could ask everybody to give a warm round of applause for this great crosstalk session. Thank you very much, Annie, Laura, and Arthur. You can have a seat. Thank you very much. It's not over. I told you everything is circular and not linear. We're not finishing today, but we are finishing the crosstalk right now, and we're wrapping up for now the event. But I want to warmly welcome you all to please check out the exhibitions that are here today. Oh, getting too excited. There's more works being shown aside from the special prize winners' works. We have, for example, an enlightenment over here. Please watch the video and be inspired by Liken's capacity to be an air quality monitoring device. We have a product called Soji coming from Spain, one of the past Circular Award winners, that converts used cooking oil into detergent. Please take the time to look around at all the projects and be inspired by the Circular Awards winners from this year and previous years. Also, this year we have a very special menu that we're going to be releasing from tomorrow, Sunday. This is a menu that will be featured exclusively at FabCafe, featuring Nihonkusaki Kenkyu-jo, or in English we would say the Japanese Institute of the Institute of Researching Japanese Botanicals. And basically what we have here is a pair of very dynamic young Japanese women who are going into the mountains of Japan and foraging the new Japanese spice. What is the Japanese spice? How can we bring spice to our dinner tables? Their work is incredibly inspiring, and we're very lucky to be able to collaborate with them for this special menu. There's going to be gnocchi. There's going to be 2 different types of teas. And I hope that you will consider coming back to enjoy this special menu. Oh, there we go. Before we leave, I hope that you will consider taking our survey. I'll leave this up for a minute or two so that you can take the moment to scan. We would really love to continue the conversation with you and hear your feedback about today's event. If you're interested to connect with one of the winners or with someone at FabCafe or LawFork about these topics, we would be delighted to hear your feedback and questions. I'll leave this for about 10 more seconds. Yes, and that concludes our presentations for today. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this event. I'm so grateful and happy to see all of you here in person, and thank you, FabCafe Taipei team, for joining us online. Thank you also other members who are joining us online. And please enjoy the rest of the party, and I look forward to hopefully getting a chance to talk with you all a little bit one-on-one. So thank you very much, and 以上です. This is Kelsey. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We have a catering selection, and also we still have some drinks and from Ethical Spirits, the Gin. So if you guys could please make your way over there to enjoy and network and talk. We're going to start cleaning up this side of the room so everyone can stand a bit more easily. Thank you so much, everyone.
I also want to have a big thank you to Allison Lee and the other FabCafe members who made today's event possible. If we could please give a big round of applause for Ota-san and his entire team for broadcasting these programs online. Today wouldn't have been possible without their great support. Thank you very much.